welcome to Tucker Newman Coaching. I'm Tucker, and today I want to talk to you about nonviolent communication. So, this book was recommended to me by Paul Chek. It's Nonviolent Communication, The Basics as I Know and Use Them by Waylon Myers, MD. So, Waylon Myers is a very wise person. He studied nonviolent communication from Marshall Rosenberg, who used a concept called the giraffe and the jackal to describe how we can communicate better amongst our peers, our loved ones, anyone, ourselves, right? So the basics are pretty much as follows when it comes to communicating nonviolently. So we're always going to be asking two questions in a non-violent communication. So first one is, how am I doing, or how are you doing? What are the events, emotions, or personal needs that are triggering this conversation? So I walk into a restaurant or I walk into a coffee shop and I'm standing in line and someone just happens to mention, wow, like, look at the weather outside, because it's raining or something, right? So what event has triggered this conversation? The rain outside. And the emotions that we're talking about, person's like, it's raining outside, I kind of feel down. So now we're understanding how they're doing. Then what personal needs to be met? So then you ask, what can be done now to improve my or your well-being? So you can ask that person, all right, is there anything I could do to cheer you up? Or just listen, right? Sometimes Waylon Meyer explains, we can start with a guess. We can ask, all right, like, you ask person, like, is there anything I can do to help you improve your condition? A better example too is now you're in a argument with someone, right? How am I doing? How are you doing? So you're arguing about, here's a common one, finances, right? You're arguing about finances. So what event is triggering a conversation? Finances. What are the emotions? Anger. And then what are the personal needs being met? The need for safety and security. You're not feeling safe, so you're upset because of this event. So how am I doing and how are you doing? Next, we ask, so what can be done now to improve your and my well-being? Right? Instead of focusing on the negative and blaming, we're not being specific, and we're just describing our opinions, we're not being objective. That's when we start to communicate violently. We start to inflict pain on the other person. And we don't want to do that when we communicate, because there's no reason. So, what can be done now to improve your condition? Right? This applies to any situation, right? You're always asking yourself this. So when you're communicating with yourself, how am I doing right now? Am I feeling a little depressed? Am I feeling down? Or am I feeling happy? What can be done to improve my condition? Nothing, I'm content, right? But you want to ask the question. You need to ask the question, and then this is a practice, right? This is very foreign to our culture to communicate violently. Most of the time, we don't care how we're doing. We don't care how the other person's doing. And then we actually can make the situation worse by not trying to improve their well-being, because they're not thinking about what emotions they're feeling, what personal needs they're trying to get met. So every person has 6 basic human needs. We all need certainty, safety, security, and this falls under the Laszlo hierarchy of needs. This is the base level. This is the root chakra. We each need safety and security, to know that we're going to be okay, to know that we have certainty, to know, like, it's nice to know that you're going to work and the building's not going to burn down, right? We need some level of certainty. We also need uncertainty, fun, variety. So sometimes people will do crazy things because they need some variety, right? We can't just be the same all the time. But when we understand someone's needs, now we can communicate nonviolently with them. So we also have the need for significance. People need to feel important, feel unique. Everyone has different fingerprints for a reason. We need to feel unique, special, important. So some people will dress up in crazy clothes or dye their hair rainbow colors so they feel important. So instead of judging them, we just understand how are they doing, right? What need are they trying to meet? They're trying to meet a need. Oh, I meet that need too, just in a different way. Oh, so now I'm being empathetic and compassionate, and I can understand the person. So now my vibrational energy is much more in a loving state than in a guilt, fear, shame state. So next we have the need for love, though. So we need to feel unique, special, important. We need to be like the complete individual, but we also need to be part of a community. It's like a paradox. We need certainty, we need uncertainty. We need significance, we need love. And that's fourth chakra, right? So third chakra is significance, right? That's the I am. That's our personal power. The fourth chakra, or the middle dantian in the traditional Chinese philosophy, that has to do with love. We each need love. So sometimes people will do certain things to meet their need for love, right? And it's crazy what we'll do to meet these first four needs. We'll do anything. We'll lie to ourselves. We'll create imaginary friends. We'll have a psychotic breakdown just to meet these needs because they're so ingrained in what it means to be a human. And then the next needs that people have, they need to grow and they need to contribute. These are the needs of the spirit. So sometimes we don't meet these needs, and when we don't, we call that apathy, depression. Life just is really lacking any meaning. So we need to meet those, all those needs we're always trying to meet. So the more that we can communicate with ourselves nonviolently and really uncover what our needs are, and then communicate nonviolently with others and communicate what their needs are, the better our relationships are going to be, the better we're going to feel day to day, because the quality of life really reflects the quality of our emotions, and the quality of our emotions and the quality of our life determines the quality of our relationships, right? And the biggest relationship we have is the one with ourselves. So we got to make sure we're communicating with ourselves non-violently at all times. Next, so the tips. When you're communicating non-violently, you're going through your checklist, right? So what event, emotions, personal needs are being triggered, and then you request a specific action. So you're upset that someone said something mean to you, so you can request for an apology. You can request for some time to think for yourself. You always make the request, and then the other person, as a human being, is a naturally altruistic being, right? Humans are pretty altruistic. If you request something you need to improve your well-being, you're almost guaranteed that the person will spontaneously think of a way to help you. And they're like, oh, I can do that, right? Oh, I can do that. Or you can think of a better solution together. But as long as you're working on solutions and not focusing on problems, then guess what? You solve a lot of problems. So we want to be objective when we're describing things that happen, right? Instead of saying like, you did this to me because, right, you did this to me. We're blaming, and we're saying that you are you should have called me earlier, right? You should have called me earlier, and you didn't because you are selfish. That's a common one. You're just being selfish, right? You're just being selfish. So what we want to describe is that I noticed you didn't call me earlier is a description, an objective description of the event. There's no blaming, there's no judgment. So now you're looking at the event for what it is. They just didn't call you earlier. Do you know why? So we'll ask, how are they doing? And what can be done to improve their well-being? So now you're not even blaming or judging at all, which is a very common thing to do because most of the time we're judging ourselves. So then we project down to other people because we don't want to look at it within ourselves. We can also avoid blaming and judgment by looking back at the needs, right? It's hard to blame and judge someone when you realize you're doing it too. And guess what? The only reason you judge someone is because you're repressing the fact that you do it too. That's a very deep statement that is worth meditating on is really thinking about all the things that irritate you and other people are just your shadow, or the things you don't want to look at within yourself subconsciously. And this is a concept that Carl Jung talks a lot about, Sigmund Freud talks a lot about, a lot of psychology, people in the psychology world talk about this concept because it's true. And then be specific. We want to be specific when we're making requests, when we're talking about objective events, when we're communicating with others, right? We want to be specific so that we don't get things lost in translation. If we're too vague, we can't improve our well-being in the most effective way. So we want to have specific action items. And lastly, I want to cover the love model created by Paul Chek. L stands for life. We need the desire to live, right? If we don't have the desire to live, we have the option of suicide at all times. So we need to desire to live, or we'll be either degenerating or we might end up in a rock bottom state. I've been there. No one wants to be there. Next, we have the 0 with a line through it. This is infinite potential. So you have the desire to live and you have infinite potential to work with. If you've seen some of my previous videos, how to overcome limitations, you understand once you have infinite potential that you have the potential to take massive action, which will lead to massive results, which leads to a huge amount of certainty and belief within yourself, which fuels that you potentially more. We call that the success cycle. And lastly, a VE stands for volt electron. We're a human battery. I use this device called Regenuate, and it's a millimeter wave technology device, portable, that you can take anywhere. It has automatic timers in it, and it helps me regenerate my body, increase my voltage of the cells by helping the signal within each cell communicate properly so that we can repair. Because we live in a world where there's too much Wi-Fi, too much cell phone tower radiation, microwaves, all this stuff is buzzing our body, and it's disrupting the natural gigahertz frequency of our cells so that they can no longer communicate, and we stay in a degenerative, highly inflamed state all the time. So VE, volt electron, is so you have infinite potential, and volt electron is what the energy that you use to express your love, right? So that is what the universe really is. They teach in all the biblical texts, God is love, right? So how can we be more loving and compassionate? And Paul Chek's definition for love is basically, love is the flow of information through empathic and compassionate connection to self or other. And the best way to have an empathic and compassionate connection to self or other is to use this nonviolent communication framework. And I encourage you to practice this. I encourage you to purchase this book. It will help you out a lot. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. And thank you for watching. I hope you learned something new, something very useful that you can use in your life that will completely transform the quality of your relationships. So if you like this video, give it a like, leave a comment, subscribe, and remember that a better me creates a better world. Thank you. Thank you so much for bettering yourself by watching this video and continuing to improve yourself every single day.